Okay, first up, this is fun. We're going to do an API other than a chat completions API that we're all bored of. We're going to do an API that generates an image. There's an OpenAI.images.generate using the OpenAI Python client library. And you pass in a model and a prompt, a size, and response format. So this is the structure. And we're using a model called DALL-E 3, which is OpenAI's image generator from about a year and a half ago. They've got a newer one with GPT, but you have to go through quite some rigmarole to get approved to be able to call that through the API. And I don't want to put you through that. DALL-E 3 is much quicker and easier. And I actually really love DALL-E 3's images. Now, one thing I will mention, though, is that each time you generate an image, it costs about 4 cents. And so all of the other, I don't know about all, but almost all of the other calls in this course are unbelievably cheap, tiny fractions of a cent. But this one is 4 cents each, so be aware of that. I think it's well worth 4 cents. But if you don't, then don't do it. So the prompt I'm putting in here is that you can call this function artist by passing in a city, and it will make a prompt, an image representing a vacation in this city, showing tourist spots and everything unique about this city in a vibrant pop art style. Okay, that's the prompt. With that prompt, let's create an image for New York City and display it. And now, when we run this, one thing I will say is that it's not super speedy, but it's doing a lot here. It's generating this image. And by the way, we'll be doing this with open source models at the beginning of week 3, if you're wondering. So you can look forward to that. But this is running now using DALL-E 3, and there is the result. Look at this, check this out. I mean, the quality of these things is just amazing. So this is, of course, a picture of Times Square. Strangely, I guess pop art gives it some discretion. There is water going through Times Square. And there is a Statue of Liberty here. And there is, obviously, it's all illustrative, which we will let it do. But I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love there's obviously a sign of yellow cabs. There's New York written there. It's really nice. It's definitely has, I guess it's the New York Stock Exchange, I think. It definitely has a feel of New York, no question. I think this is super, super impressive. Okay, so also I've got another, we're not done with images. We want to have another kind of medium as well. So another different API I have for you. This time it's openai.audio.speech.create. And you pass in a model. We're using this one here, GPT-4o Mini TTS. TTS stands for text to speech. And you give it a voice. And I've got some other voices, should you wish to try them. I'm going to go with Onyx. And the input, which is a message. So Talker is able to talk with a message, and we will return the contents of that. So I'm not going to do anything with that just yet. I'm just showing you a Talker. Okay, fair enough. It's now time for us to bring this all together. So I have a slightly beefier chat callback for you. I will talk this through briefly, and it's really an exercise for you. You might be confused that this chat only takes history. It doesn't take history and a message. And that's because we're about to do a bit of custom Gradio stuff, and we're going to do some messing around first, and we're only going to have a callback with a single variable, with all of the history, including the most recent prompt. You'll see that in a second, but that might cause you to pause for a thought for a second. So we start by scrubbing the history as always. We put together all of our messages, adding the system prompt, and then adding in the history, which, as I say, is already going to have the most recent message. And then we call openai.chat.completions.create with our tools. And then we have our while loop that loops through making messages. And I've just updated our handle tool calls. It's now handle tool calls and return cities. Because if a tool call happens to involve a city, then I'm going to have it returned. And I'm putting that into responses and cities, 2 variables. Okay, otherwise everything is very similar. No real differences. And then with whatever comes back, I'm just going to shove that in the history. And now we just have something here. You'll see this voice equals talker reply. So whatever comes back, I'm also going to put that to Talker, so that Talker will actually generate audio for whatever comes back from the LLM. And I've also got this little if cities. So if there were any cities that came back from here, if it turns out that the user asked for some cities, then I'm just going to take the first one and make a pop art image of it. And then I return from this. You remember before the chat callback, it takes the message in history and it just returns to the next message. Well, I'm having it return three things: the whole history, the voice, and the image, if there is one. Okay, that's different. Let's see how we hook this together. Well, first up, I want to show you the handle tool calls and return cities. Here it is. This is basically exactly the same as handle tool calls before, but sneakily, I make an empty list of cities, and whatever city is called in the tool, I just add that to my list of cities and I return it here. That is it. I assure you, I've made no other changes. It's the same handle tool calls. It just as it says on the tin, it returns the cities as well. And that's going to be used up here to draw an image if there's a city there. Okay, that all I need to run these cells, run that. And finally, we need to look at the Gradio user interface. So there are three different types of Gradio user interface. I didn't tell you that before, but now I'm telling you. We first met the type that was called gr.interface. That was one of the first ones we made with the shout thing. And that is basically for very standard, simple UIs. You've got one callback function that you specify. You give a number of inputs, a number of outputs, and it's done. You do that allow flagging equals false thing if you wish, if you don't want the flag button. And then you've got yourself an interface out of the box, simple interface. gr.chat interface is the one we've been using for the last couple of days. That's the standard chatbot style, the one that looks a bit like an instant messaging app. That's a sort of pre-baked UI. Again, there's just one callback called chat, which has to have the structure that we now know very well. And that's, again, another basic canned UI. The third type is for custom UIs, when you don't want to pick a canned one and you actually do want to manufacture the different pieces yourself. You want to lay out the different UI components, and potentially you want more than one callback. You might want to have different buttons that can call different functions. And when you're in that world, you're in an area called gr.blocks. That's what you're doing. And I'm going to this is not a Gradio lesson, so I'm not going to go through everything. I think I linked to the resources for Gradio before. They're so great, so easy to use, but I am at least going to show you a use of gr blocks to lay out a user interface. So here it is. Here is the gr.blocks setup, and it comes in three pieces. Why do these things always come in threes? It comes in three pieces. First up, you define any callbacks that you've got. Well, we've already got a callback. It's called chat, and it's the big callback that does everything. There's a little extra callback I've got here, which just makes the UI look nice, which is called put message in chatbot. And it's a little callback, which is going to make sure that when we type a message and press enter, it's going to move that message right away into the chatbot window before it calls our chatbot. Otherwise, it looks a bit janky. So that's what this does. You'll see it in just a second. So that's the callbacks. The second step is where you define your UI. This is what Gradio is going to use to build that svelte user interface behind the scenes. And you say use context managers with gr blocks as UI. And then you can do this use with .gr.row to lay out each row on your user interface. I'm going to have three rows. The top row has the chatbot screen. That's the sort of backwards and forwards, the messaging, and an image output. The next row has an audio output, and the last row has the gr.text box, chat with our AI assistant. So that is the UI defined right here. And finally, you have to give Gradio the code that hooks things up together. This tells it which callback needs to be called when and what circumstances, so that it knows how to attach that front end to call different routes on the backend server. And this is how you do it. You pick something like this text box. I'm saying message.submit. That means if the user hits enter in this box, this is what I want you to do. I want you to put the message in the chatbot, and you give it inputs and outputs. And then I'm going to say, then call the chat function. And here are the inputs and outputs. And the output with this chatbot function, The inputs should be the complete chat history. And the outputs, there should be 3 outputs, and they should go to the chatbot history, the audio, and the image. That's how Gradio should hook them up. The chatbot history, the audio, and the image. Let's go back to our chat function. This chat function returns the chatbot history, the audio, and the image. And that's how it works. This will be running on a route, and the server will hit it. It will return these 3 things, and those 3 things will then be surfaced on the UI. If you're not following all this, it really doesn't matter. You should get intuition for it, feel into it, because it's now time to see if this actually works.